Viewers, before anything else, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're tuning in from, whether it's midnight in Chicago or dawn in Manila. Now imagine standing in your backyard, a summer morning full of oak smoke curling out of a steel giant you welded with your own hands, briskets resting quietly inside like treasures. That was David's world, until one Friday before Labor Day, when the smell of hickory ribs and sweet rendered fat was drowned out by the grind of county vehicles and the stomp of police boots. He saw them pull up, 2 officials, 2 squad cars, all summoned by the HOA president, Karen Blackwell, a woman who treated dandelions like criminal intruders. She stood across the street with pruning shears poised like a queen's scepter, a faint smirk curving her lips, watching his sanctuary get branded with a blood-red sticker, closed by order of the health department. David had spent years perfecting his craft, keeping his tables cleaner than a surgeon's bench, logging every temperature curve on a laptop like it was scripture, even keeping a camera rolling on himself for proof. Yet all it took was 2 anonymous complaints of food poisoning, and the officials' hands were tied. The fury burned in him, not the kind that lashes out, but the colder kind that steels itself for war. Historians still argue whether barbecue began as survival cooking or as ritual celebration, but for David it was both, fire as family, smoke as belonging. Watching his neighbors whisper and point, watching a reporter with perfect hair declare his life's work unlicensed, he realized the fight wasn't about meat at all. It was about power. The neighborhood split like a cracked fence post. Loyal customers texted their support, "Your brisket's the best, don't give up," while others muttered that maybe too much smoke had always been suspicious. And then came the HOA's email blast, Karen's masterpiece of fear-mongering, written with the polish of corporate PR. It never named him, but it didn't need to. Talk of unregulated businesses and disturbing reports was enough to make him the villain at the center of her neatly scripted tale. She didn't just pull weeds, she pulled reputations. The lie had settled in like mildew under fresh paint. David knew no health log or permit could scrub it away. If he wanted justice, he would need a new weapon. And that's when he thought of Patricia Alvarez, defense lawyer with eyes like polished onyx and a knack for turning lies into ashes. Patricia met him in a dim bar downtown, a glass of bourbon already half gone, as if she had been waiting. He spilled every detail, the shutdown, the news van, the HOA email, and she listened without so much as a raised brow, her stillness sharper than any outburst. When he finished, she slid the glass to the center of the table and whispered. She built a narrative. Now we build one stronger. It was like a chef meeting a fellow craftsman, one who didn't cook with smoke and salt, but with motions, evidence, and timelines. Her office felt less like law and more like battlefield command. A wall-sized whiteboard gleamed, magnets ready, markers lined like knives in a block. Most lawyers build timelines, Patricia said, but tonight they'd build a menu, each course revealing the anatomy of the smear. David's permits and temperature logs went up first, bright curves proving flawless cooks, meat climbing slow to that magic 203 where collagen melts into butter. Next came his sanitation receipts, boxes of gloves, food-safe sanitizer, heavy foil. Then the footage, him changing gloves like a surgeon, his smoker a cathedral of order. Patricia whistled at the thoroughness. "Stick to brisket, chef," she teased, though her eyes shone with admiration. But truth alone wasn't enough. They needed to puncture the lie. 2 red names went up on the board. The complainants, soon unmasked as Mark Renshaw and Susan Miller. Ghosts turned into suspects. Here the hunt began. Doorbell footage from a neighbor who despised Karen over a garden gnome revealed her white SUV. The envelope passed to Renshaw like a late-night drug deal. Another camera caught Miller an hour after supposedly eating David's pork, strolling out of a sushi joint with a takeout bag fat enough to feed a sumo. And just to gild it, a dumpster-diving investigator recovered her receipt: spicy tuna, rainbow roll, dynamite roll. Basically a microbial lottery ticket. David stared at the board, the evidence now a map of betrayal. It wasn't just lies, it was choreography, cash, and raw fish dressed up as neighborly concern. Patricia called it conspiracy, but he felt it like a personal wound. Cooking for someone is a promise, and they had weaponized that promise. Historians still argue whether reputation dies faster in gossip or in courtrooms, but David could see how fast it rots in a neighborhood text chain. Patricia's smile was all blade as she whispered, "Tomorrow, we stop playing defense." The courthouse smelled of old coffee and stale paper. Nothing like oak smoke and pepper rub, but David sat straighter in his stiff suit because beside him Patricia looked like a general about to unleash artillery. Across the aisle, Karen perched in navy like a self-appointed guardian of suburbia, her lawyer slick and silver-haired, bred for HOA combat. The jury leaned forward as Patricia unrolled her case. Temperature logs as elegant as sheet music, lab reports that called his process bacteriologically perfect, video stills of gloved hands, and sanitized counters. Karen's lawyer stammered about ongoing concerns, until the judge cut him with a single line. "Counselor, are you a scientist?" Laughter rippled. David almost smiled. But the real storm came when Patricia pulled up the footage. Karen's SUV, the envelope to Renshaw, the sushi receipt with Miller's name glowing under projector light. Add to that their text messages, the smoking gun typed in casual shorthand. "Money on delivery of your signed complaint." Karen cracked on the stand, blurting excuses about charity and neighborly concern, but the jury saw through it. Her power suit looked suddenly 2 sizes too big. The judge issued a rare directed verdict: fraud, defamation, conspiracy. Damages awarded. Karen forced to read a public apology in the HOA hall she once ruled like a monarch. The gavel cracked like a brisket bark. A week later, David wheeled the beast into the community park, polished steel gleaming, sticky residue of that red sticker scrubbed away and replaced with a sign that read "Good food, good neighbors." Smoke curled into the cloudless sky, not as defiance now, but as restoration. Neighbors lined up, even those who had whispered doubts, plates in hand, shame in their eyes. He served them anyway, one by one, no judgment, because food was his language of peace. The health inspector and fire marshal came too, families in tow, grinning like kids. Even the new HOA president asked him to consult on fair bylaws. The same community once poisoned by Karen's lies was now mending itself, bite by bite. And in that slow fade of an afternoon, ribs in greasy hands, kids darting across the grass, Patricia leaning against a tree with that satisfied smirk, David breathed in the smoke. It didn't smell of anger anymore. It smelled of victory, of neighbors rediscovering each other, of a community learning that truth can smolder a long time, but eventually it lights back up. Historians still argue whether justice comes from courts or from people, but on that day it came from brisket. So the story softens here, like embers settling under a rack of ribs after the rush of flame, the sharp edges fading into warmth. Imagine the yard quiet again, not with squad cars or news vans, but with the low murmur of neighbors chatting over picnic tables, paper plates balanced on their knees, children sticky with sauce chasing each other through grass that no longer feels like contested property. The beast exhales slow ribbons of blue smoke, no longer a battlefield monument, but a hearth for the block. David stands a little apart, not because he is shunned, but because he is at peace, watching rather than commanding. The taste of the fight still lingers in his memory. The lies, the humiliation, the courtroom glare, but those things lose weight in the presence of real laughter. Even Karen's absence feels less like a shadow and more like a clearing sky. He knows scars remain, in trust and in pride, yet scars are proof of healing too, and maybe that is the truest form of justice. If you let the mind wander a bit further, picture dusk coming on, fireflies weaving tiny lights as smoke drifts upward, blending into a darkening blue. The community has no script now, no email blasts, no stage photos. Just the soft cadence of forgiveness in action, spoken without words but with shared food, with hands extended across the gap of suspicion. And as the last plates are cleared and the beast cools in the corner, there's a hush that feels like a whisper of reassurance. That truth, though battered, endures. That neighbors can fracture and still find their way back. That sometimes the sweetest victories come not from the loud crack of a gavel, but from the quiet bite of tender brisket at twilight.